Alicia was sure that her marriage was hanging by a thread. The harsh words, the silent withdrawal, the unspoken pain, everything pointed to an inevitable end. When they agreed to go to the family party, she knew deep down it would be the moment of farewell. But at the height of the tension, in front of everyone, Henry did something no one expected, and that would change everything. A story about wounded love, difficult choices, and a gesture capable of rewriting destinies. Hello, my friends. I am Linda, and this is Linda Love Stories. I hope you enjoy this story. Their love began in silence. Not the uncomfortable kind of silence, but the kind that says everything without needing a word. Alicia worked at Flavors of Life, a corner family restaurant where the aroma of fresh bread mixed with that of strong coffee. Her brown hair was always tied up in a messy bun, and she carried a small notebook in her apron pocket to jot down orders. Her hands were marked with small scars from paper cuts and minor burns, marks of a life of work since she was young. Henry always appeared around 1 p.m. Tall, broad-shouldered, with eyes that seemed to carry untold stories. Initially, Alicia thought it was a coincidence, just another customer during lunchtime. Then, she began to notice the small details, how he waited for a table she was serving, how his eyes discreetly followed her, how he always left a generous tip even when his order was just a coffee and a sandwich. "More coffee?" she asked one day, holding the thermos. "Always," he replied with that restrained smile of someone who is not in a hurry. And something in her calmed when he smiled like that. It was the first of many coffees. Gradually, he started staying after lunch, waiting for the rush to die down. They talked about books. He was a literature teacher at a local school, and about her dreams of one day having her own flower shop. "Why flowers?" he asked one afternoon. "Because they transform moments into memories," she replied, remembering the arrangements her grandmother used to make to decorate the small house where she grew up. "They are like little miracles that last a short time, but that you never forget." The romance grew like the roots of trees, imperceptibly at first until they became too deep to uproot. Lunches turned into walks in the park, then dinners at home, movies on the old couch in her apartment. She discovered that he had a small scar on his left temple, the result of a bicycle fall at the age of 9. He discovered that she hummed unconsciously while cooking, always the same melodies that her mother used to sing. On their first anniversary together, he took her to the botanical garden. Among the azaleas, he pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. "I'm not good with words for these moments," he confessed, his hands trembling slightly. "But I know you are my home, Alicia, the person I want to come back to every day." She said yes before he even finished the proposal. They married in a simple ceremony, with little money, but big plans. They bought an old house on the outskirts of the city, with warped windows and peeling paint, but with a huge yard, surrounded by old trees. The floor creaked in certain spots, and the heater made strange noises on winter nights, but for them, that place held the future. On hot summer nights they sat on the back porch drinking iced tea and talked about their plans. It was there, in that yard, that their future would reside. They imagined their children running among the trees with dirt-stained feet and faces smeared with ice cream. They talked about how they would teach them to ride a bike, how they would build a tree house, how they would plant a garden that would grow alongside the children. Alicia, since she was little, dreamed of motherhood as one dreams of the sky, something eternal, greater than herself. She grew up watching her mother raise 3 children on her own, after her father left without looking back. Even so, or perhaps because of that, she believed that a family was the greatest treasure one could build. They started trying right after the wedding. At first, each cycle was a promise. She kept a small calendar in the nightstand drawer, marking the fertile days with little red hearts. Henry bought pregnancy tests that were kept in the bathroom cabinet, waiting for the right moment. After 6 months, the expectation was still high, but a shadow of doubt began to hover. After a year, the wait had become agonizing. Months turned into years. The calendar was stored in the deepest drawer, and pregnancy tests were no longer bought with the hopeful light of the beginning. When they finally sought medical help, they still relied on fragile but intact hopes. Dr. Rivera, a gynecologist with a gentle gaze and soft hands, welcomed them into her office decorated with small seascape paintings. "We'll investigate step by step," she assured them, while filling out examination requests for both. Many couples go through this and manage to fulfill the dream of having children. Examinations were conducted, treatment started. Their routine changed. Now there were hormonal injections, weekly appointments, basal temperature monitoring. Henry left work earlier to accompany Alicia to the appointments. In the waiting room, he always held her hand, tracing small circles with his thumb to calm her. At home, the tension grew silently, like the crack that crosses the wall without warning. They didn't discuss the matter, but the room they had set aside to be the nursery remained closed, with unopened cans of paint in the corner and samples of wallpaper with star and cloud patterns scattered across the floor. It was on an ordinary morning that everything changed. Henry woke up before the alarm, as he always did. He made coffee, set aside the vitamins Alicia took, and checked his emails on his phone while the toast was getting ready. Among the work messages and advertisements, he saw the notification from the laboratory. "Your test results are available for viewing." He hesitated. Normally, they waited to open them together. But something that morning, perhaps the different light coming in through the kitchen window, perhaps the weight of waiting that had lasted so long, made him tap on the notification. Henry received the email from the laboratory before Alicia woke up. He opened it, read it, and the world stopped. The words were there, dry and technical. "Patient Alicia." And then the verdict: irreversible infertility due to a congenital ovarian condition. He stood in front of the screen as if he could undo the letters with his gaze. The coffee overflowed from the cup he was holding, burning his fingers, but he hardly felt the pain. He knew how much it meant to her. He knew it wasn't just a result. It was the destruction of a dream she had carried since she was a girl. And somehow he couldn't explain, he decided to protect her from it. He went to the website, digitally altered the document, and printed a new version: male infertility due to low sperm motility. When Alicia came down the stairs, rubbing her still sleepy eyes, he put the phone in his pocket. He smiled, kissed her on the forehead, and pretended it was just another morning. Throughout the entire day at work, the words of the report haunted him. He mechanically explained Romeo and Juliet to the students, his mind miles away, planning how he would tell her, how he would protect her heart, even if it meant carrying guilt that wasn't his. That night, they sat on the living room sofa with a cup of tea that cooled without being drunk. The old lamp they had bought at a thrift store cast a yellowish light over them, creating elongated shadows on the walls. He handed her the paper, unable to fully look at her. "The lab sent it today," he said, his voice so low it barely came out. She read it. For a moment she was silent, and then, as if something cracked inside her, the words came. "I can't believe this," she said, her voice trembling. How can this be true?" Henry kept his eyes fixed on his own hands. Alicia stood up, the crumpled paper between her fingers. "This is your fault. The food you eat, the stress from that job, the sedentary life you led before you met me." The words came out quickly, filled with an anger that wasn't really directed at him, but at the fate that seemed to mock their dreams. "Maybe," she continued, tears streaming down her face, "maybe I don't want to be married to someone who can't give me what I most desire in life." It was cruel, and she didn't realize at that moment that she was talking to herself. Henry just looked at her, absorbing every word like someone accepting a punishment they believe they deserve. The next day, while he was at work, Alicia packed a small suitcase. She left a note on the fridge. "I need space. I'm at my mother's house." Eleanor's house, Alicia's mother, was about 40 minutes away. It was an old 2-story home, with lace curtains on the windows and the perpetual smell of cinnamon and clove in the air. Eleanor was a simple woman, full of faith, who had raised 3 children almost on her own after her husband abandoned them. She didn't know the hidden truth, but knew how to recognize when her daughter was drowning in sorrow. She sat beside her on the small back porch, served her hot soup in a blue ceramic bowl that Alicia recognized from her childhood, and with a serene voice said, "Love is more than fertility, my daughter. Henry is suffering just as much as you are. You need to put yourself in his shoes." She paused, looking at the small garden where 3 colourful plastic chairs remained, remnants of Alicia and her siblings' childhood. "And children can come in other ways." Those were the words that opened cracks in the wall Alicia had begun to build around her heart. She remained silent but listened. Days later, Henry called. His voice sounded tired, as if he hadn't slept since she left. "Sophia is having a birthday party on Saturday," he said, referring to Alicia's cousin. "I think we should go. We need to talk, Alicia." She hesitated. In her mind, she already imagined the end of that conversation. He would ask for a divorce. After all, what man would stay with a woman who blamed him for something that wasn't even his fault? "All right," she replied, feeling her heart heavy. "We'll meet there." The party was at Sophia's house, decorated with colourful balloons and Christmas lights out of season, giving a cosy feel to the backyard. There were homemade cakes and snacks on plastic trays, loud music coming from an old speaker, and children running among the adults. A simple party, with improvised decoration, but full of human warmth. Henry arrived a few minutes after Alicia. His hair was longer than she remembered, and there was a shadow of stubble on his face. He wore the blue shirt she had given him as a Christmas gift last year. A small detail, but it made her heart ache. They sat side by side at the table, surrounded by noisy cousins, curious aunts, and questions that felt like knives. "And the children, when are they coming?" asked Aunt Martha, balancing a glass of juice and a piece of cake on her plate. "Are you trying already? You're not that young anymore, you know," added Cousin Dora, in her usual straightforward manner. "Are you going to leave it for later? Look, the biological clock doesn't wait," insisted Uncle Paolo, as if he were talking about the weather and not about their shattered dream. Henry squeezed Alicia's hand with every question, as if it were possible to protect her with his fingers. But she was also hurt, and still believed she was hurt by him. On the 5th time the question came up, this time from Sophia, the birthday girl, Henry stood up abruptly. The noise of the chair scraping drew everyone's attention. With steady eyes he asked for silence. The music was turned down. "I would like everyone to know," he said, his voice clear and resolute, "that Alicia and I cannot have children." He paused, took a deep breath. "I am infertile, and I would appreciate it if no one else asked about it." The room plunged into an unsettling silence. Some averted their gaze, others murmured apologies. Alicia froze. She felt her face burn, a mix of shame and guilt spreading through her body like poison. She stood up as well. "We need to go," she whispered to Henry. In the car, the silence was as dense as fog. The streetlights passed by them, creating rhythmic shadows inside the vehicle. "You didn't have to do that," Alicia finally spoke, her voice trembling. "It was unnecessary. You exposed me, exposed our private life." He just nodded, eyes fixed on the road, chewing on the pain of words he didn't return, because he knew that, deep down, it wasn't about exposure. It was about the wound he was trying to protect. The following days were calm and strange. They slept in the same bed, but it was as if they lived in different houses. The space between them could be measured in centimeters, yet it felt like an abyss. However, something was moving slowly, almost imperceptibly. A gesture of care here, like when he would leave a cup of tea ready for her before going to work. A gentle inquiry there, like when she asked if he needed help grading the students' exams. Time was setting everything right. Just when it seemed like they were finding each other again, the phone rang. It was from the lab. They wanted to schedule a follow-up with Dr. Rivera. Alicia answered. "We need the digitized exam code to attach to the medical record," explained the receptionist. "Sure, I'll check the email," Alicia replied. She opened the computer in the living room, the one she rarely used. She searched her inbox for emails from the laboratory. She found it. When she opened the original attachment, the ground vanished beneath her. Patient Alicia. Infertile. The report was hers, not Henry's. She hung up the phone without finishing the conversation. The world was spinning. A knot tightened in her throat. The walls of the room seemed to close in around her. She sat on the couch and cried like she would never stop. She cried for the child who dreamed of being a mother. She cried for the woman who hurt the man who loved her. She cried for not knowing who she was, now that this dream had been denied to her. For 3 days, she remained silent. Henry asked, concerned, if she was ill, if she needed anything. She shook her head, said she was tired, and then on the 4th day, she approached him while he was reading in the small makeshift office. Her eyes were swollen, her hands trembling. "I know," she said simply. "I saw the original exam. I know what you did." He closed the book slowly, without marking the page. His shoulders dropped, as if he could finally release a weight he had been carrying for so long. "Why?" she asked, her voice almost a whisper. "Because I know how much this dream means to you," he replied, looking at his own hands. "I thought it would be easier if you blamed me, and not yourself." Alicia approached, kneeling before him. "Thank you," she said, tears returning. "Thank you for trying to protect me, even when I was so cruel to you." He did not respond. He just hugged her, like someone holding a person at the edge of an abyss. Alicia buried her face in his chest, asking for forgiveness. She said she was ashamed for blaming him, for saying what she said, that she loved him even so, even without children. And for the first time in months, Henry cried. He cried without shame, without restraint. He cried for the pain he had tried to carry alone. And together, in that room that had witnessed so many fractures, they began to mend what was left of them. The years came as time does, too slow when you were waiting, too fast when you look back. They tried insemination with donated eggs, in vitro fertilization. They tried experimental treatments. But Alicia's womb remained silent, and little by little, the original plan gave way to something more beautiful, a plan remade with tenderness. They began attending a support group for couples who could not have biological children. It was there that they learned about the adoption process, not as a second option, but as another path to the same destination, forming a family. They adopted Mia, a 7-year-old girl with watchful eyes and fear on her shoulders. She arrived with a small purple backpack containing all of her possessions, 2 sets of clothes, a worn-out book of fairy tales, and a rag doll missing an arm. In the first few days, she hardly spoke. She checked 3 times to see if the bedroom door was unlocked before going to sleep. Then came Lucas, a 5-year-old boy with an easy laugh and a dark past. He loved playing with toy cars and had a natural talent for drawing. He called Henry teacher for weeks until he finally managed to say Dad. Later, just when they thought their family was complete, they received a phone call from the social worker. 2 siblings, Olivia and Noah, aged 6 and 4, who had been separated in different foster homes, needed a permanent home, together. Without hesitation, Alicia and Henry said yes. One day, while looking out the kitchen window as she prepared lemonade, Alicia saw 4 children running through the backyard, her kids. Mia, now 12, was teaching Olivia how to jump rope. Lucas and Noah were having a water balloon fight, laughing and shouting. Their feet were dirty with soil, their faces smeared with the popsicle they had eaten earlier, exactly as she always dreamed. Henry entered the kitchen, bringing clean towels for when the children decided to come inside. Alicia hugged him from behind, resting her face against his back. She smelled his familiar scent, a mix of aftershave and the faint aroma of the books he always carried. "They are ours," she said simply, her voice calm and assured. He nodded, turning to face her, smiling with his eyes in the same way he did on those afternoons at the restaurant years ago. This was not the family they had imagined when they met. It did not come through the paths they had planned, but it was the family they dreamed of. And perhaps, more than any plan they ever made, it was the living proof that true love does not require perfection. Just presence, just courage, just the kind of love that chooses to stay, even when everything seems lost, even when the silence screams, even when the backyard is still empty, but the heart is not. Their love had begun in silence. And now, years later, it had blossomed into a symphony of children's laughter, in the sound of little feet running through the hallways of the old house, in the stories told before bedtime. A love that, like the roots of those trees in the backyard, had become too deep to uproot. A love that had found its way, even when the original path vanished. True love is revealed in pain. Henry protected Alicia even when she blamed him. Life does not follow our plans but always offers new paths. Family is not defined by blood, but by care. And the greatest courage is not giving up on the dream but reinventing it together. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 5 to show how much you liked it. Also, watch the video that is now appearing on your screen. See you soon.